a panel discussion on generative AI, redefining efficiency for GCCs. And in this session, we're about to dive deep into the transformative power of generative AI and explore how it's reshaping GCCs into more agile, efficient entities in a highly localized business environment. We will also address the challenges of adoption, the strategies for successful integration, and most importantly, the tangible benefits that businesses can achieve by leveraging this powerful technology. This discussion is about to feature experts who are leading AI driven transformations within their organizations. And today they will share their valuable insights on how generative AI is helping businesses thrive in today's rapidly changing market. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Alan Roy, Head of Analytics at Mashreq Global Network. Ladies and gentlemen, you can clap for our speakers as they join us on stage. May I please request on stage Anand Chandra, Senior Vice President, Banking and Financial Services at Bounteous into Accolite. Rakesh Rajora, Global CIO, Group GBS Information Technology at CMA CGM. Sanjay Sikdar, Vice President, Global Delivery Center Head, Samsung SDS. And this session will be expertly moderated by Moumita Sarkar, partner at Deloitte, India. This is going to be the final panel discussion for the summit and a power-packed one. But that will depend on how much of energy you will give our speakers as well. So please begin by giving them a huge round of applause before they start sharing their thoughts with us.
Hello. Thank you for waiting on. I think the last session on generative AI, I don't know how. Let's make it very interesting, gentlemen. Thank you all. And because it's the last session, I happen to have the privilege of chatting with the gentleman on this topic for the entire day, most probably. So we have been rehearsing our questions, but it's now been so many that we have now going to free flow the discussion as we go on for our audience. So I think it's a topic which is close to all our hearts here, and I think topic of efficiency in GCC, I think it's something we all want to hear, the real life use cases, whether you call it some magic which will happen or magic we are threatened with, whatever we want to call it, but it is here to stay. So let me, without I start with a very quick one and what I call the rapid fire. I'm going to throw this question, gentlemen. 1% between what is in production, what is in MVP or POC, and what percentage do you see in the innovation garage or kitchen? So if I had to do a quick round, percentage from all these three, production.
For us, it's no more PPT. It's all about production.
So all production, 100%?
No, not 100%. Last year, we were doing demo and POC, but here, focus is more than 50% production.
Gen AI, you're saying,
yeah?
50% production. Rakesh?
I'll say generative AI.
Yes.
Not more so predictive and agentic. 25 to 30% production, rest discovery and POC.
Perfect.
I bring a different perspective to the table from a services side that caters. So I have a different definition of production to an MVP. It is from a financial services, it is in the sub-20s. From a regulatory lens, telecom clearly is leading, but somewhere in that range of 20% from production.
Yeah. Perfect. Alan?
Yeah, I think if I look at it like a pyramid, it's a wide pyramid. We would be around 20% in production, same in sort of development, and a lot around ideation and scoping.
So we heard that. So basically why we start with this is, there's a level settler here. So in sense that it is here, the Gen AI in production, and I think we are going to talk more about these production cases for all of us. Happy to take questions at the end. So it is in production. So maybe I'll start with Alan, from your end, you can talk about some of the use cases that you see. So we'll do one round to understand what are the use cases which are finding in GCCs. Since we have efficiency, it can be frontline on processes. What would be your take on that from your company?
Thanks, Moumita. It's a buzzword today. So starting from your entire leadership all the way to the guys who's possibly joined yesterday are talking about GenAI. So it's very natural that in an environment like that, there will be a lot of buzz and everybody wants to do. But I think from a pure value perspective, I'm from banking. It's a highly regulated industry. What is more important for us, we thought, is can we take GenAI to the customer rather than our interfacing? Because we'll keep doing our internal stuff, but it's important to go to the customer.
Yep.
So in that perspective, we took our your chatbot to the market. We've been working on it for 3 years. It's in production for almost 5 quarters. We have seen 400% increase in adoption between Q1 to Q5, which is the most latest. We've been able to migrate 50% of the incoming traffic from the call center through the bot. Our intent recognition is at 95% accuracy. In a year's time, we are about to sort of get to the same cost that we have incurred. So we are narrowing there. From the next step perspective, we are taking it from English to Arabic, which is a big challenge. We're taking it from individual banking customers to small and large corporates. That's again another challenge. From a learning, I would say the biggest learning for us has been to think a little more holistically, think a little more creatively, and that's in a sense your prompt engineers that you're talking about. So all in all, it's a journey, and we have embarked on it, and we are committed to investing in that.
Perfect. So that's the first one. Just to summarize, it's on the getting the conversation out there inside chatting, and also not to chatbots. I think it's also how you add that layer of GenAI to make it a more conversational. So that's the first use case, guys, from a GCC standpoint. Rakesh, for you, and then maybe we'll come to Anand.
Perfect. So I'll say that before we embarked in our organization on the AI journey, like the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, creator, preserver, and destroyer, we had to destroy a lot.
Yeah.
So before we could think of a CDO, Chief Data Officer, on which you build AI, we had to hire a CDO, which is Chief Destruction Officer, to question the legacy, stop some initiatives. So to your point on use cases in shipping and logistics, coming from banking, career banking, I think blockchain, Demuraj's claims where now AI can read multi-formats, images, videos, voices, and ability to process it into multiple formats. So I think possibilities are out there. AI is right here, and resistance is futile.
So I think you spoke about multimodal. So that is one more class, I think, with multiple GenAI having the capability to do multimodal, taking the input, converting it, conversion of this. We'll talk about it. I think that's an interesting one. Thanks for sharing, Anand.
Yeah, and I'll give a different dialect to it. A same use case within different divisions of a bank would have a different fabric or an association to it. As simple as automated customer engagement. Now that's a broader use case, and we would very generalize it by saying it's all about chatbots, it's all about interaction, virtual assistant. But if you were to look at it from a retail banking perspective, it's a very mass outreach. So the definition of that use case is very different. The underlying technology is very different. If you look at it from a commercial banking perspective, it is more about relationship. So the touch points are different. So the way you look at that implementation and the MVP and productionization is different. From an investment banking viewpoint, it is very transaction heavy. It's very data sensitive. So you have to have the same customer journey, but in a different format. And last but not least, if you look at private wealth and wealth management, it's a very HNI setup, a very high touch point engagements from a robo-advisor viewpoint.
Yeah.
So the same use case as you look at it, but generative AI gives a very different meaning when the execution comes. And I think that is where the definition of use case for us.
Interesting. And is that more, are you seeing that as a customer journey? Because I have a follow-up question to that. Because customer journeys, and I'm sure many questions will arise there, because it's touching the end customer. Do you see anything when that where generative AI is like there is some inhibition because it's ultimately going to go to the customer as a conversation not being generated by human beings. So is there something which you're seeing? Just a follow-up, maybe a segue.
It is, and it also varies by different geographies. Southeast Asia has embraced it very differently in terms of you have a handheld device that's modern, and you have people that are using are also modern and contemporary in their mind share. But if you look at it from a Europe or US perspective, the segmentation varies. So while very easy answer to it, it's all regulation driven, but it is also about the segmentation of the user base from a customer standpoint.
Perfect.
And I think that's where it is leading to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sanjay.
Yeah. So for us, like, because as Samsung Global Delivery, we actually support different Samsung subsidiaries. So what we try to mainly focus that whether using this Gen AI, whether it is improving our process efficiency in our day-to-day business, or it is primarily supporting the productivity improvement for our different internal customers.
Sure.
So keeping that in mind, what we try to do, like we have the agentic AI, we also have the one-stop AI-based, Gen AI-based employee service portal,
Yep.
which actually reduces lots of manual work, like so which we use in our day-to-day work and improves the process efficiency.
And you would have, like, because it's Samsung Global, like, you service lots of different businesses,
Correct.
right? So as a center which is servicing multiple businesses, how do you modularize this? Just a follow up on your use case, because you said about customer survey, your employee survey. Sorry, that's what
employee
you
service
Yeah.
kind of because Samsung, as you know, like they are very much particular about security and compliance.
Yeah.
So we also have our overseas subsidiaries. So we try to actually understand, like for example, our process efficiency, which accelerators we use, that actually supports the security part of it, and at the same time improves the productivity benefit.
Okay, so we heard, I think I'm just maybe summarizing the process side of it. So process efficiencies, customer facing efficiencies. In logistics, we have different kinds of usage in different parts of the transactions in terms of banking side of it as well. So I think a lot of different kinds, but there are classes of problems. So now let me come to those a little deeper, right, as we go. And I'll ask Rakesh you this question, because it's a very interesting model. You're the CIO for 16, right? I got the number? Geographies. And I had always this question that, there are certain decisions in a Gen AI production which are globally taken. And this is just from the experience of the customers I look at, that there are some decisions which are global, like the infra, and some decisions which are locally made. Suboptimal, optimal, we have a question, but that's one question to you. This global versus local, and global, local, how do you see this in your system?
Yeah, so first thing is that, ever since I walked in this room, I've been hearing this word AI across the floor, so it's amazing. It means it's here, but it's also most abused word. And automation is something we think we automate a lot of problems, right, without thinking about the customer experience. In the prior bank, we automated a process wherein a customer has to come and change address in a certain number of years, and we automated the process. It was a Hong Kong-based bank. And massive customer complaints started coming. They said, I don't trust the links you're sending. I want to come to your branch, sign that document with the ink and wet ink and paper, so don't automate. So first is customer journey, understand from the personas and customer journey what customer wants. Often we think automation is a solution, so that's one. To your point on global versus local, absolutely same challenge we had when we implemented packaged software 30 years back, Oracle, SAP, Ariba, where as a country, we always complained about our parent organization not taking into account our requirements, whereas 50% of users were in India. Circle back 30 years, fast forward, 90% of users saw your transactional platform sitting in India plus other GPS locations.
Yep.
Now the parent organization still wants to control the design authority to make sure you don't do something stupid here. But when India model is taken to other centers like Estonia, Latvia, Portugal, or Mexico, they have the same complaints as India had 30 years back from parents. So naturally, we need to have that governance of what stays, what get customized. But it all comes down to including people in the design stage early on.
So you're saying that if we include global practices as well as people, buy-ins, and then have the governance in place. And I can't agree to you more that how governance and operating model plays a very important role in productionizing it, because then it comes to it that, yeah, very, very interesting.
And
So, yeah.
last comment on
Yeah,
that
yeah,
before
yeah,
I shut up
please.
is 17 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
Chongqing, we take China too lightly. And we built an India model because the leadership sits here because India is a hub. And second largest area is China, Chongqing in China, for other regions. And when we take our AI models using Google AI or Mistral, we realize that we can't use any of these in China firewalls. So it was a wake-up call that you can't build here and replicate anywhere else. Even smaller regions want to have voice in the design phase.
Very, very interesting. And I'll come back later on, maybe hold on to this point of accelerator at the end, because that's an important modularization of delivery is a very important element. Maybe we'll touch that. But Dr. Allen, he touched upon governance. I will bring a little more color to it. Security aspects, governance, security, processes around responsible AI. So I'll not get into this because that's of course a topic of a full debate, full session. But what about, how do you see this in a play where there is a global, local, and a GCC operating in that space?
I think more apt in the context of GCCs, where we're not necessarily serving one parent market.
Yeah.
We are serving multi-country environment. The good thing about AI is it doesn't have a lot of legacy. It's pretty nascent, and you can actually build from the beginning. That's one strong advantage of it. But when you are embarking on that journey, that's from our experience, one has to do a very tight roping between what kind of flexibility you want business units to have vis-a-vis what kind of centralization you need to have in terms of your platform decisions and your governance and your operating model. It's a tightrope. And that's what we're realizing. If you cast it very narrow, that I would go with a very strict centralized procurement kind of a process, which is the legacy, what will happen is that the business units or the units that are looking at value by investing money will feel very stifled, okay? So I think that's the art, possibly what GCCs need to embark upon. That's from my experience. But just an addition to the same point, if you're talking about can GCCs take a leadership role in creating AI hubs, I think it's fantastic, and the answer is yes. It's because if you happen to walk through a couple of floors in any GCC, you will invariably see 20 processes, you will see people handling 15 platforms, and you would see people talking about 3-4 different products. That kind of synergy you will never see anywhere else. So when you're looking at such a landscape, you're natural that you would start thinking about a lot about generative AI. Okay, so I think GCCs are well positioned, but I think the big question is, can they do the tight rope walking between flexibility to the end users vis-a-vis centralization decisions in terms of platform and governance?
No, fantastic. So in fact, this centralization and, or decentralization, I think many of us who are trying out and getting it into production is a very, very important concept. And, from there, Sanjay, I wanted to talk about this exactly to the point. And, when we look at centralization, decentralization, you need to be flexible. You need to create an environment where your systems are flexible enough, and some LLMs, they have certain flexibility. There are some LLMs which perform good in certain kind of use cases, we know that. So for that, multi-cloud, the hyperscalers, multi-partner environment, like how do you see the ecosystem that you are embarking on? And when do you do those conversations? What's your take on that?
So like for example, in Samsung, we have this kind of GCC in India plus Vietnam and China. So when we actually try to build an AI roadmap, we need to have a common understanding plus some, as he mentioned, that's some localization as well. So talking about the hyperscaler in Samsung, we have the Samsung Cloud Platform, our own cloud platform,
okay,
plus AWS.
Perfect.
But at the same time, apart from hyperscaler, we also have different partners. like for example, Deloitte is also a partner, IBM,
Yeah.
PwC, or lots of other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we need to understand, have a common kind of roadmap while we're developing any AI accelerator or anything on a hyperscaler. So that kind of integration has to be there. Plus, what we try to do something like, for example, we cannot use Chat GPT. Okay, even in China, there are some restriction, as you correctly mentioned. So that cultural combination factor also has to be sensitive.
So you touched upon this. I'll come back to you on this because I have this special question for you.
Okay.
But especially, Anand, on this one, if I know we talked about governance, processes, operating model, platform, the ecosystem, and my favorite question is in adoption of a productionization of this case. Important is how the adoption goes through. How do you make MVP to a production stepwise? If you can talk about certain challenges that you have seen in, now that we are all in a production mode in many of our use cases.
From a Bounteous Accolite viewpoint, as a service partner to some of the GCCs that are delivering on their transformation, and we enable in some pockets, and we are leading that charter in some pockets. For us, we view that trajectory in terms of the GCC evolving from a capacity to a capability to a value driver.
Yes.
And that transformation is what we have heard in different dialects
I think
across. If you were to look at some of the challenges is, we still have a lot of silos. We need to still break them and move forward. And for that, a typical example from a governance perspective would be a 3-tiered governance in terms of local, regional, and global. So you have to have some autonomous local aspects, and then IPs, partnerships become more collaboration from a regional perspective. And then at the end of it, all these regulations do boil up the accountability from a global perspective. I and Rakesh were discussing from financial services perspective has to have that one central. The other example from a scalability viewpoint is build global, execute local. A very simple example, a payment gateway. As a core framework, it needs to have certain commonalities, but at the same time, it should be compatible in India from a UPI perspective, but then need to have a PayPal integration in a seamless way. So those are some of the challenges you have to think through.
Yes.
And then, of course, the evolution is taking in terms of core centralized framework and model it regional. And that is where some of those gaps are. It's like an example I always give to my customers in terms of Netflix. So when you log in Netflix in different countries and different regions, it does understands from a regional viewpoint what that content is, but it's still governed by the algorithm that sits at the core level. So I think that is the synergy that sometimes is a bit of a challenge, and scalability needs to draw around that.
Yeah, perfect. And I think we hearing this and we discussed this also, that Gen AI has this accountability element to it. And let me come to the point of actually making these models work. And for that, there are two important components, and Dr. Ellen, I'll come to you and then Rakesh on both on this point, is how do you see this capability building? So if you have to provide whether global to local, or mostly you're building these modules of whether it's a chatbot or a customer journey or process efficiencies, how do you see capability as, how the capability landscape of Gen AI? I mean to say, some of the jobs descriptions, I wish I was a prompt engineer and not made, today. Then SaaS models were there, for us. Right. So yeah, if you had to elucidate on that.
I think the answer to the question is very heavily dependent on what kind of use case we are talking about.
Yeah.
If there is a value associated to it and the CEO is committed to it and you're taking it to the customer and the regulator is sitting on your back, I think experimentation is not a good idea. There you'll have to partner with someone who has already built it, and there are a lot of stacks in the market. I mean, there have been Gen AI focused companies for almost like 10, 12, 15 years in US. So if that's the kind of use case you're talking about, you would like to onboard them, one of them, and then slowly move from a position of solely depending on them over a 2 to 3 years horizon where you can actually transfer that entire knowledge to yourself. You'll never get the IP, but you can, in the process, start grooming and having talent which will work for you and continue that journey. So it's like a build, operate, transfer kind of a model if you're talking about that kind of use case.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of use case that happens today where we want to bring in efficiencies in our internal process. Let's say HR wants to democratize all the documents, and you want to have a search engine to find how many leaves you have rather than getting into the system, etc. So those kind of use cases, I think there's a lot of talent in-house.
Yeah.
Because look, hold on, I think she has hit it. We used to call it advanced analytics in 2000 to 2005. Then we started calling it machine learning from 2010 to 15, 17. I think that in many form is being called as AI. So there's a lot of area of people migrating and transgressing across skills from advanced analytics to machine learning to AI. That talent exists, and they need possibly a little bit of coping up. And with OpenAI and open source, it's making life easier. So you will get a lot of talent in-house, but if it's your CEO's neck on the rubber and you're being chased by the regulator, you would like to have a different model. So it's fit to purpose, I would say.
Yeah. Rakesh, what do you see in your ecosystem in terms of sort of capability or ecosystem of technology as well? What would you say about on the same topic? Because it's an important area for be fast-paced in terms of developing these and producing it for your processes.
I'll say, as the panelists were talking, I think for the first time in human history, our technology at home has taken over technology at office. So quick show of hands, how many of you have ever gone to office to print out your resume on a weekend in your previous jobs?
In past lives.
Yeah, all of us have done that, right? So I think you used to have Fortran, AS400, Foxbro, Foxbase, that's the languages I grew up learning at the IITs. What percentage of banking applications are still Fortran, COBOL based? COBOL, 1%, 2%, 5%? It's a lot bigger than that. Because
it's much bigger, yeah.
All banks and organizations have grown inorganically through acquisitions and M&A. Yeah. I mean, the company I represent acquires every $4-5 billion company every year. But IT systems are the last one to be integrated.
Absolutely.
But good news is what you said. Now, while the core platforms are coming with their AI layer like ServiceNow, Snowflakes, or Ariba or Oracle, a good part is you don't need to look for APIs and interlocks once you have data out, and you can put your AI layers on top of it.
Yeah.
So with low code, no code AI is available, with your ability to read multiple formats and generate. Generative AI is where generative AI comes into the picture, is almost magical. And the last comment there will be that good part is you don't need a technology background. I'm surprised to see in my banking experience where HSBC, JP Morgan, Deutsche, or shipping majors, my best of the AI folks are from history background or former chefs, but they're amazing in terms of imagination and capability, because you don't need to be a coder. Like, you don't have to know your typewriting skills to use a smartphone. We skip those 7 levels in between. My maid has 3 smartphones and is making reels all the time. Likewise, in the AI world, a lot more is possible if you have imagination and willingness to learn.
I get what you're saying, get the age thing sorted completely. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to come back with an interesting question which I wanted to ask, culture. So while in GCC, and I think many of the, our fellows here, when we look at GCC as a, when you're doing a GenAI use case and you're productionizing it, how important is the culture aspect to be kept in mind, given some strong culture elements that you have been seeing and you've been abiding to?
So actually, when I joined Samsung from IBM, it was completely a culture difference, because from an American company to a Korean company. So completely, there is a 2 different kind of culture. We in Samsung, we have to have lots of security, and even right from the point you enter the office, it's more like you are entering into an airport terminal, like you have a security check and everything. So the kind of accelerators and assets we are building on AI side, we have to keep in mind that cultural sensitivity. So we have the laptop carry-out approval, we have the any other kind of approval, whether the mobile is a verified asset or not. So everything has been now taken care by our agentic AI solution. Similarly, we have like Microsoft Copilot, we have our BT Copilot solution, which actually what we do, all of our meeting with our headquarters, that is Korea, happens in Korean language. So Indian leadership speaks in English and Korean leadership speaks in Korea, but it is real time. So automatically it gets translated. So, but one disadvantage is we cannot sleep. We have to look at the translation and actually keep ourselves awake whole throughout the meeting. So that's one good part of it. Even while I write a mail to my Korean expat sitting next door to me, so I'm writing in English, but automatically it gets translated in Korean when he gets that, even for the meeting also.
No, and the reason why I brought that up is that when we do Gen AI productionization for multiple countries, it's important, even if we are building those modular components in your local, system, you need to make it viable and feasible, and therefore a versioning of that for your German client and the European countries or the Asian countries need to have versions of the model. And I've been stressing upon it most of the times, how that plays an important role for success. So maybe Anand last, and then I will have one last rapid fire to end.
So I'll do a rapid fire from my side, which I'll conclude, but I'm going to steal thunder from you. I'm going to moderate the sessions for next 30 seconds. I have a question for Rakesh. You have worked across financial services for majority part of your career, and now you're on the logistics side of the businesses from a transformation viewpoint. A regulatory lens, which sometimes can give you a hard time and some more hard time. How has been your experience on adoption of Gen AI between the two industries? Quick.
Fantastic. So quick means one sentence? Okay. We have 45 seconds.
45
I'll make it 10
seconds, and I
yeah.
still have
And
to
you still have
wrap
flight
it.
to catch, or you're good?
Yeah, I will ping the buzzer.
Yeah. So a quick one in terms of last at the JP Morgan robotics development 10 years back, regulators called me in New York, a lot of complaints. And they said, explain this bot, what works, what's the governance, entire 8 hours with 6 people team. In the evening, 6 o'clock, they said, can you give us some people? We also want to build bots because we don't have people. So reg tech is catching up with fintech with a lag of 10 years. But yes, we have to be cautious and be mindful. And as you rightly said, we need to calibrate in forums like these, the art of possible, what others are doing, and not do anything crazy. Yeah?
Sounds good. And to conclude from my side, if I were to say, bring your own agent, would be my view of that's what is coming. That's the point of view.
Yeah, so basically last, I think before we wrap up, the new kid on the block, Gen AI, and then you add one A on this side and it becomes I wish it was as simple as that. But that's taking up, guys. So I think you talk about it. So if there is something you want to talk about, the agentic AI explosion which is happening, maybe a quick few explosionary thoughts on this. Anything on agentic which you're doing? I heard you have already done.
Yeah, we have the process efficient accelerator.
I know it's too early. Maybe the next sessions we should be talking about agentic AI.
I'll make a quick comment because some of this jargon can be very confusing. So keep it simple. Anything, when you're using past events to make predictions about the future is predictive AI. When you are actually generating multiple options using multiple formats, generative AI. And we're taking decisions based on data, which human in the loop is agentic AI. It's as simple as that. To your point on agentic AI is the future. And the question we often get asked in other countries is, will people lose jobs because of AI? I think people who understand AI on the floor will not lose the jobs. Rest you have to figure. Yeah.
Just to repeat the same that I said, multi-workflow agents. So bring your own agents across different processes. So I think that is where, at least from a services viewpoint, we see.
Dr. Allen.
My take on agentic AI, I won't be surprised if in a couple of years' time, it would be as efficient and it would be something similar to what you see on Kapil Sharma's show. It can go to that level of creativity and that level of fascination.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was lovely talking to you. And I hope the audience had a lovely time listening to all your real-time use cases. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.